The newly appointed Prime Minister of Cambodia will visit China this week as the Southeast Asian country takes further steps to build stronger ties with the economic powerhouse. Chatmongkol Pissamaigosol reports.
Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping during his two-day official visit to China. Hun Manet will pay an official visit to China from September 14 to 16, as confirmed by the Chinese Foreign Ministry. The Cambodian Prime Minister visited China at the invitation of Premier Li Qiang. The 45-year-old four-star general was declared the new Prime Minister of Cambodia in August. Hun Manet replaced his father, the country's longtime leader Hun Sen, after nearly 40 years of serving as Prime Minister. Both countries enjoyed strong bilateral ties for decades under Hun Sen's rule. China is Cambodia's largest ties. Hun Manet is expected to follow in his father's footsteps when it comes to maintaining positive ties with Beijing. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชัดมงคล พิสมัยโกศล SMS ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Business groups asked the Prime Minister of Australia to take with him a delegation of corporation chiefs when he visits China later this year. Shayna Salim reports.
Australian and Chinese officials are still finalizing the details of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's upcoming trip to China. With the officials still busy finalizing the details of the trip, business leaders have proposed that the Australian leader make the visit a more important one by making Beijing an economic partner. Albanese confirmed he'd accepted Chinese President Xi Jinping's invitation to visit Beijing this year, following a meeting with Chinese President Li Qiang on the sidelines of last week's East Asia Summit. It will be the first time an Australian Prime Minister will visit China since Malcolm Turnbull did so in 2016. Australia-China Business Council President David Olsen said he hoped Albanese would take representatives from the business community, noting that it would be a lost opportunity to leave them behind since Canberra's relationship with Beijing is mainly economic. Meanwhile, the chair of the Business Council of Australia's Global Engagement Committee, Warwick Smith, said that businesses had offered to accompany the Australian Prime Minister on his upcoming trip to China. The long-awaited trip could likely take some time between the late October and early December. Sources said that China wants Australia to avoid setting any preconditions on the upcoming trip. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Shayna Salim, SMNI News, Australia.
Chinese envoy criticized Japan's action, saying that it unilaterally launched the discharge of nuclear-contaminated water from the crippled Fukushima power plant into the Pacific Ocean. The envoy also urged Japan to accept strict international supervision regarding the discharge. Ria Saito reports.
At the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors meeting held yesterday in Vienna, the capital of Austria, Li Song, China's permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Vienna, says the disposal of nuclear-contaminated water into the ocean has become a major issue concerning the global marine environment and public health, and it is not a domestic affair of Japan. According to Li, the Fukushima nuclear accident that happened 12 years ago caused a serious disaster in Japan, but the country has the responsibility and obligation to dispose of nuclear-contaminated water in the most responsible, safe, and careful way to avoid causing secondary damage to the marine environment and humanity, adding that disposing of it at the sea is not the only option nor the most responsible. Li also emphasized that Japan has not asked the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency or IAEA, to execute comprehensive disposal options other than dumping it into the sea, which has rejected. He said the IAEA statement cannot serve a pass for Japan and just dump nuclear-contaminated water into the ocean. The Chinese envoy said the IAEA report cannot serve as a pass for Japan to go through with the discharge. He underscored the importance for the IAEA to establish a long-term and effective international monitoring mechanism no longer controlled by Japan. Lee urged TEPCO and the Japanese government to address the serious concerns of the international community. Member states and the Board of Governors should also play a principal role in establishing relevant international monitoring mechanisms and carry out regular reviews of the issues and the mechanism itself. 以上、日本から最低ニュースをお伝えしました。S9 News in Japan.
Kuwait prepares to send dozens of athletes to the biggest multi-sport international event in China, which boasts of more participants compared to the Olympics. Melchizedek Cadiz reports.
Assalamu alaikum. More than 12,000 athletes from dozens of countries, including Kuwait, will compete in the upcoming Hangzhou Asian Games in China this month. The giant sports festival set to take place in eastern China will start on September 23, 2023 and conclude on October 8, 2023. The Asian Games has recorded more than 12,400 athletes, which means it has more participants compared to about 11,000 participants who joined the Tokyo Olympics 2 years ago. The Kuwaiti delegation will be sending 140 athletes for the Hangzhou Asian Games, consisting of 117 male athletes and 23 female athletes. The delegates will be leaving for China on September 19th. The Games were initially scheduled to occur in 2022, but got postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Asian Games is China's biggest multi-sport international event since its pandemic restrictions ended nearly a year ago. Barakallahu fikum jami'an, kan hada Melchizedek Cadiz sa Akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
Prior to the meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin, the latter spoke at a plenary session wherein he criticized Western nations for destroying the global economy by disrupting financial and trade relations. Jean Domingo has the details.
Russian President Vladimir Putin voiced his concerns about Western countries damaging the global economic system they played a role in creating. He expressed these worries during a speech at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. President Putin stated that some Western nations are causing harm to the international economy by disrupting financial, trade, and economic relationships. However, Putin also pointed out that many countries around the world are committed to working together for the benefit of all people, not just the wealthy few. These nations prioritize their own projects and aim to bring long-term benefits to their populations. According to President Putin, this approach is leading to the emergence of a new international model that is more inclusive and less focused on Western standards. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also highlighted the growing influence of groups like the BRICS economic bloc and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as more countries seek alternatives to Western-dominated international institutions. Lavrov argued that many nations feel the need to bypass these Western institutions due to grievances and sanctions imposed by the U.S. and European unions. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SMNI News.